Welcome to my quest guide for Perilous Moons. This quest is a required completion to then take on the new Perilous Moon dungeon content. The starting location is over here all the way in Camptorum. You can just run from the city on this path straight west, or another way you can take your Cutzel right here to this transportation area, run a little bit south, and then jump down this agility shortcut. Other than that, the pre-requirements for this quest are 48 Slayer, 20 Rune Crafting, 20 Fishing, 20 Hunter, and 10 Construction. And you also have to have completed the Twilight's Promise quest. If you haven't done that quest already, I will link my quest guide down in the description below. But in terms of item requirements, technically there aren't any items you do need for this quest. All of the tools and such you can get while you are doing it. This quest does have a 75 combat recommendation. This is the gear I do use for the boss fights. Obviously this is day of release, so in no way am I saying this is best in slot. Similar to some of the other quests we do have in the past, part of completing this quest is basically doing your first run of the Perilous Moons dungeon. And there is time for you to bank prior to that. But if you don't feel like taking the massive trip, you could easily already fill up your inventory with some of the supplies you do need. One thing I 100% recommend is having quite a few staminas. I didn't mention that earlier, but there is a ton of running in this quest. To start the quest, go ahead and talk to Zuma, and select option 1 to start Perilous Moons. And once we've kicked things off, let's make our way over here to the northeast. Climb up these rocks, and as you can already see it up the hill, we have a Sulfur Nagua that we need to attack. And once you've killed it, let's head back to the start. Talk to Atala, and once you finish the dialogue, head north into the city. Once you're in the city, continue heading north. And all the way at the very north of the city, you'll run into a pack of all the people you started the quest with. Go ahead and talk to Jessamine. Select option 1, can I be of any help with the dig? And once you're geared up and ready, head north through the entrance. Make your way all the way to the north and talk to Jessamine again. Once you've talked to Jessamine, talk to Atala. And then finally go east and talk to Zuma. Once they've all gathered at the north, talk to Jessamine. Now we need to set up camps in every single area. First, we have to set up camp in this area. So go ahead and take some of the supplies from this chest. And let's start by going into the northeast room. Once you're inside, continue heading down the path. And head up this staircase. And the first camp spot is directly right here. Go ahead and build it. And now that you've built your first base camp, we need to make our way back the path that we came in on, so we can get back to the main room and start building the other base camps. Now that we're back in the main entrance, let's do the northwestern. And once again, we'll start running up the original path. Head down this staircase, and just down the staircase is the base camp. Once you've built it, make your way back to the entrance, and then we have one final base camp to build in the final area. And for the last area, we have the southwest, which is the Nagua area. Be careful because these monsters are on your path to the base camp. And over here in the corner where the cooking sign is the last base camp. And now we can make our way back to the start and tell them we've built all of the base camps. Once you've made it back out, go ahead and talk to Jessamine. Tell them you've finished setting up the camp. And when all of the options come up, select option 1. What does the encryption say? And then when the options re-come up, select option 1 again. What do we do now? And once you get the talismans, we need to make our way out of this area. So go back through the entrance. And now we need to head into the Camtorum magic shop. Continue going just a little bit south and then to the west and squeeze through this door. And inside we will find Nata. Go ahead and talk to him. Select option 3. Actually, I've been sent by Atala. And once they are enchanted in your inventory, we need to make our way over here to the northeast and talk to the blacksmith. Talk to the blacksmith. Select option 2, I need your help with these talismans. Select option 1, can you help? And once the cutscene ends, we need to make our way back to the northern 3, so head through the entrance. And once you've made it back into the area, you need to use the talismans to locate where we need to go next. Unfortunately, it does look like this is unique for everybody, so you'll need to select both talismans, hit locate on them to see which areas you need to go. And mine say southeast, and unfortunately this area is locked, so I'll have to access it through this northeastern dungeon. And once you locate the area, this person will spawn with a very difficult name. Once you've located her and your dialogue's finished, you need to make your way back to the entrance. Once you made it back, talk to Jessamine. Continue going through the dialogue. And once the dialogue ends, we now need to make our way into each of the areas. Let's go ahead and head to the northeastern one to complete that first. Head up to your base camp and take from the supply crates. And take all of the supplies so you have any of the items you could need for this part of the quest. Make your way through the northern entrance and set a trap on each of these 2 rocks, and then connect it with all of the rocks in this area. Collect from the grubby saplings, and then use the moonlight grub on your pestle and mortar to get the moonlight grub paste. That is the first item you need. Once you've set your traps, go ahead and rustle the bush, and you will trap a moss lizard. Go ahead and use the moss lizard on the knife, and you'll get the moss lizard tail. Once you've got both of those, the last item we need is the bream scales, so make your way out the entrance, head over here, and use this fishing spot. Once you catch a bream, use it on the knife, and you will get bream scales. And now that we have all 3 items, let's make our way back to the starting area. Talk to Eyat Lolly. Say I have the items. And now for this part of the quest, it is basically time to complete your first run of Perilous Moons, so make your way back to the bank and gear up with a full set of gear and a full inventory of food. And if you have not already seen everything about these bosses, they are defensive bosses, so primarily you are more focused on not taking damage and trying to be a tank than you are killing them by doing as much damage as you can with whatever weapons you have. So the best in-slot gear for these bosses is the tankiest / best tank armor you have. This is the current inventory and gear setup I am rocking. And obviously this is day of release, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is the best gear or the best inventory setup. I am, for the most part, just shooting in the dark. But apart from that, this will be a little quick guide for the boss fights. I'll go ahead and turn on my game sound, and you can watch and listen to some of the mechanics of each fight. But without further ado, I'm going to jump straight into the first fight, and we can take on our first boss of this quest. I'm going to make my way through the northwest entrance. And let's go ahead and jump into our first fight. And for the Blue Moon boss, go ahead and protect from melee. Avoid the spiraling cones on the ground and light each of the braziers. Once you've done that, make your way back to the center of the room, and you always want to stand on these highlighted tiles. Once on the tile, you are free to attack. And make sure you're always standing on the highlighted tile, because you take reduced damage to the basic attack. Once the 3 cones spawn, attack the frozen one, and that is a splash attack, so make sure you don't get stuck on top of it. Whenever it spawns on the ground, make sure you run off of it, and then continue attacking the frozen weapon that is highlighted with a little beam underneath until it breaks. Continue rotating around the room when the spot does. Prioritize standing on the spot more than you prioritize attacking or doing any damage. And once it kicks you into the center of the room and all the spirals spawn once again, make your way all the way over and light the brazier. If you do get hit, it does turn off your run energy. And then get back on the highlighted tile. And with that, you have completed your first boss fight. If you need some run energy, you can make yourself a cup of tea. And now let's make our way through this dungeon so we can complete the second one. Right here is the entrance to the next boss fight. And when you're ready, head on in. Once again, I'm going to be protecting from melee. And we spawn right in the middle of a fight. So this section of the fight, you want to stay off of this tile, stand on the highlighted, and attack the highlighted jaguar. One interesting aspect of this fight that we've touched on in the past is that it is a community boss. So people can take it on at the exact same time, but you will always have your own individual health bar. So I spawn right in the middle of different mechanics, so whenever you run in, the different mechanics might be happening than what you just saw right there. Just like the other bosses, you want to stay on the highlighted circle. This is an aspect of every single boss in Perilous Moons. Now for this one, it is a blood acid attack. Just don't stand where any of the acid spawns. Consistently try to keep moving. And as long as you don't stand on any of the spots with the acid for too long, you'll be just fine. Prayer could be typeless damage. And there is our second boss completed. Let's make ourselves a cup of tea to restore our run. And now let's make our way to this northwest entrance. All of these boss layers are directly linked with different paths, but the entrances are always consistent. If you do use your minimap, you can see the entire dungeon and where every single one of the entrances link themselves to. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more confusing at first. But if we head through this entrance and then pass through this one right here, we'll just have to make our way a little south and we'll make our final boss for the Eclipse Moon. You can see the most southern entrance links me right to that boss fight. Go ahead and drink ourselves a cup of tea on the way. Let's pot up. And let's enter our final boss fight. For this section of the fight, you want to stand behind this orb to help protect you from some of the boss's attacks. Once the orb goes away, stand on the tile just like normal and attack the boss. Depending what weapon you're using, it appears you get about 2 to 3 attacks per spot before it rotates to the next circle. For the moon boss, whenever you get slurped into the middle, look in the direction of each of the bosses that spawns to help avoid the damage. Use the ball to protect yourself from the main attacks. Try not to get too behind it. Marking tiles in the future will probably be pretty beneficial for this special specifically. And only 11% left for our final boss fight. And there we go. Once you've completed all 3, let's make our way back to the main entrance in that center chamber. Go ahead and talk to Iat, and then talk to Jessamine, and talk to Zuma. Once you've made it back, go ahead and talk to Iat, And with that, you have completed Perilous Moons. And in return, we get 2 quest points. But that'll do it for this day of release Perilous Moons quest guide. If you guys did enjoy or found it helpful, consider dropping a like. This one took a good bit of time to record and complete. Other than that, hopefully you guys are getting some good RNG for the first day of all this Varlamore content.